I'm here.
Mike, I'm not sure if Deanne had gotten a hold of you. She needed to go tonight, or she couldn't attend tonight.
Is that printer, are you able to print the agenda off of the website?
I was not able to get an agenda, no.
Mine was all set up and I tried to print it off and it wouldn't print.
I got mine off the email.
Oh, you printed off the email?
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is right there. That must be Jackie. Do I need to wear a mask too?
Muted. I'm sorry. I was here talking and we were muted. So if anyone ever has trouble connecting to the city email, you can always go to our website and I'll show you. So this is our website. You can scroll down. It's normally like that screen, but you can click city meetings, scroll down and look for the meeting. So we have planning commission. You'll be able to load the agenda. So I just hit packet and it downloaded it and I can view it there.
Well, it came up as a PDF, but it wouldn't print on my printer. I thought maybe something was wrong with my printer connection
no.
or something.
Sometimes if they're big PDFs like that, you actually have to put it on your drive and then print it that way.
Okay.
So Deanne is not here. So
Deanne's not here. She asked me to conduct the meeting for her, but I apologize. I don't have an agenda. I had left the office and the IT guy had called after I'd already left. So my apologies.
here's the agenda. I guess the first would be approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which was in March. I'm gonna take this off so you can actually hear me. Does everybody hear me?
I can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. So if somebody makes a motion, if they could say their name and then make the motion, and whoever seconds, they say their name.
There is an error in the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay?
Under
I'll second it.
discussion, the fourth bullet down,
Oh, changes.
I am not the, this is Jeff, I am not the chair.
Okay.
Should just say Commissioner Matson.
Commissioner Matson, go ahead.
And just the fourth bullet down on the minutes said Chair Matson asked a question, and it should have said Commissioner Matson.
Oh, okay. All right. Would someone like to make a motion to approve that?
I move to approve those changes.
This is
I'll
Jeff.
I'll
second that
second it.
motion.
Who seconded?
That was,
I said I would and Brent said at the same time, so either one of us.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So we'll move on to the agenda. And then, pardon?
Britain will have to ask if there's any debate and then take a vote.
Oh, okay, I guess
Sorry.
we have to do a vote by person. So we make sure everyone,
Do you want me to help?
sure.
Yeah, please. I've got my notes here to conduct the meeting, but without the agenda, it's difficult. I apologize.
I know it is. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any debate? There being no debate, we will now go on to take vote. If you are in favor of of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan discussion.
Okay, that's basically me. We're gonna be beginning the process of updating the comprehensive plan. It'll probably be kind of a fast process in that we're kind of behind on our updates. We should have done it back in 2017. But we'll be starting it now. And what I will be doing is each month is probably sending you a marked up element from the comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan has basically a environmental element, which talks about the environment of Sunnyside. It has a land use element, which talks about what's the proposed land uses in the future of Sunnyside. It has a transportation element, which comes quite a bit from the 6-year transportation plan, but also looks at other portions of the transportation, such as transit and other types of transportation. There's a utility element, looks at utilities to make sure that we have utilities adequately to address land use and other things. There's a housing element, and that's looking at housing to make sure there's affordable housing at all levels within the city, and that we are prepared for housing, because anytime we do any other uses, commercial, industrial, we want to make sure we have housing to address those uses. And then there's an administration section that basically says how you'll update the comprehensive plan, what the process is, and that such. And the first part of that process would be the next agenda item, which is the public participation plan. And that's required as we update it. And what it is it talks about how we're going to update it. It talks about why we're updating it, and then how we will notify the public of that update process. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but I would like to have it on next month's agenda and get an approval from the planning commission so I can forward it on to the city council. And what this becomes is kind of the game plan. So if anybody wants to know how we're doing and what we're doing, it'll be available. And some of the process is giving the current status that we're in, where we can't have meetings, we can't go out to the public and really get their comments. So a lot of it's going to probably be done by the internet. And what we will do is we're going to create a website on the City of Sunnyside's website that's just for a comprehensive plan. And that'll have everything that the planning commission gets, or any kind of document we're going to put out in the public. And then provide a space in there so people can comment. They can, say they don't like this section or that section. And they will have all the information to the planning commission and the city council will be getting, so that they can comment on that. And then as we can do it, we'll do, phone interviews, other types of interviews. I'm going to try to meet with the newspaper so that they can put articles in there, maybe weekly, on what we're doing and what's available, just so we can keep the public updated. Because this is a strange time, being in planning for 30 years, I've never had this type of process where we had to figure out what's going on virtually. As you can see, this is really a different meeting than we normally would have. So I would turn it over. Is there any comments or questions about this public participation plan or the comprehensive plan?
I have a question, Mike. When did you say we're going to start seeing these documents?
Probably in August, I hope. So what I will be doing is I'll take a section such maybe as land use. Probably the first one we'll do is probably the environmental one, which will be a little bit more simple, and mark it up and bring it up to date with information, and then forward it on to the planning commission for you to look at it and say, we need to change this, or this isn't working, to get comments back on the contents to see if what we've got in our comprehensive plan is working and is applicable to today. Because some of the stuff is very outdated. It's almost 20 years old, to be honest with you, the information. The plan itself is not, but the information is.
Commissioners, does anyone have any other questions?
Jackie, can you scroll up a little bit more? No, the other direction.
Oh, but this is item B, right?
Right there, right there. I was trying to read the rest of that, the comprehensive plan that you have on there. I was curious about the airport. Who does the zoning for stuff like that?
Now, the airport will have its own separate master plan, but the zoning will be within the land use because the FAA requires a separate airport management plan, basically. That has to go through its own process. It's just like in here, you can see a park and recreation element, but normally people have a separate park plan. And like the transportation element, there will be a separate every year. In fact, the council just did it last night, I believe. There's a 6-year transportation plan that's approved each year. So there's documents that coexist together. Like the capital facility, a lot of cities have a separate capital facility element in their budget. So when they approve the budget, they're approving a capital plan also. I don't know if that answered your question or.
Yeah, I was just curious about that, the process, but I just need to read some more. I can see that. Get some of these documents and read them.
We can also print packets if you'd like, and you can stop by and pick them up at City Hall.
Or we can mail them to you.
Yeah, or we can mail them if you'd like them in paper.
Yeah, and fall asleep looking at this computer all the time, so that
Yeah.
might be better.
Okay. So we'll make a note to print out a set for you, Tom. If there's anybody else, just let Mike know.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pick up a packet as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm just making notes here. Does anybody have any general questions about the comprehensive plan or the process? I might go over the process. Basically what this is that we will go through and update each section and then we'll put it all together. Hopefully each section will go out to the public and then the whole document go out to the public. Once we get into a draft document we think is close enough, we have to actually send that to the Washington State Department of Commerce, and they have 60 days to comment on it. So they'll comment back saying, you've met these goals, or you need to put more information on here, or whatever. And then that will go back to the Planning Commission, and then they will make a recommendation to the City Council on whether to approve it or disapprove it. And hopefully through this process, as we get elements done, I will also present those to the City Council so that they can kind of look at them. And if they have comments, they can give those back to the Planning Commission. So once we complete the whole process and give it to the council, they'll be aware of what we're trying to do and aware of what the document says.
Mike, do you have a goal for completion of this process?
I'm
A date
shooting
goal?
for probably March or April of 2021.
Okay.
It's a fairly aggressive schedule, but it's something that we need to get done. And even if we get it done, then once a year we can reevaluate it and say, you know, this really isn't working or whatever. And then we will probably once a year do updates to it. The idea is to keep it current. And I'm assuming after probably March or April, we'll have some different processes of how we do things just because of this virus and what it's kind of showing, Open Public Meeting Act, all those other things. Any more questions on that? So probably over the next 6 months, you'll be being asked to do a lot of reading. Reading information, and please be very critical. If I send you something and you're like, this really doesn't make sense, or this doesn't appear to be what we really want for the community, let me know. Because you're my eyes and ears to make sure that what's being written in the document is truthful and consistent and what we want to see in Sunnyside? Okay, any other?
Well, I might have a question here. I don't really quite know how to ask the question. In this comprehensive plan, will that like be able to, for an example, stop the person that dumped about 70 loads of concrete on the corner of Maple Grove and Highway 12? Is this comprehensive plan going to have anything to where we can stop things like that happening?
Normally, the comprehensive plan is not development regulations, and that's more of a development regulation thing. The comprehensive
Okay.
plan is basically what Sunnyside wants to look like in 20 years, or actually 5, 10, and 20 years. So it's
Well, that's
futuristic
well,
type
when you, yeah, when you said that, that's kind of what I was wondering, because I know I got a lot of people ask me why they were allowing that parcel to be all the trees tore down and why they were allowing to dump concrete load after concrete load. And then when it was brought to Mr. Casey's attention, then the city put a stop to it, and they've been removing it. But I was just wondering if that would be in here, because that is part of keeping the city of Sunnyside looking good, you know. But if that's in a different spot, then I could take that to council and ask them how we can resolve that issue.
Yeah, that's a current, what we call current planning issue, as opposed to a long-range planning issue.
Okay. Okay. That answers my question then.
Okay. Okay, are we ready to move on?
Yes.
So the next thing, at the March meeting, the planning commission received some proposed amendments to the zoning code relating to accessory dwelling units, and at that time, the definition was accessory apartment units. And I think at that time, Aaron asked you to look it over and see if you had any comments or anything. I don't know if you still do. I would like to put this in an ordinance form and move forward. I do have one suggestion change, and that has to do with the accessory apartment units. Because our code actually defines an apartment as a dwelling unit within a larger residential development, I would rather see that change to accessory caretaker's unit. And that's the intent of it, is the caretaker for an industrial or commercial operation. It's not designed as being a rental unit for outside rentals or anything of that nature. And that way, when people are looking at our code, I would be concerned if they see accessory apartments, they're thinking, oh, I can put apartments in here. This way, if it's a caretaker's unit, then they know, okay, it's just one unit. Was there any comment we had from the March meeting?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment on that. I think what we ought to do is we need to run that by the legal before we say that they're only for a caretaker's unit, because the Washington state law, and I don't have the RCW and stuff in front of me, what was passed in this last legislation hearing that made it accessible to put accessory dwellings in. I did not believe reading anywhere in there that it could not be a rental. All I was, to my understanding, is that you could build an accessory dwelling in your backyard and rent that out if deemed necessary. And so I would like legal counsel to verify that before we go and pass an ordinance saying that it can only be a mother-in-law's unit.
Okay. And once we put it in ordinance form, the legal counsel would review that because they have to approve it as a form.
Yes, I understand that, but if we could get a legal definition of it prior, then we wouldn't have to put all the extra time and effort into it if we already have an answer prior to that, and then we can just word it the proper way without having to write it all up, spend all that extra time, and then have to rewrite the whole thing again. Does that make sense?
Right, and normally when we go through an ordinance process, we are working with legal counsel to make sure the wording is consistent with state and federal laws.
Mike, is there
Okay, that's
a specific paragraph in the document you provided to us that we're talking about right now?
So it's in, can you, here,
I give you the mouse,
Oh,
that
I'm
way you
sorry.
can
Thank you.
control.
let's see if I can do this.
And at the bottom of page 2, it talks about caretaker unit. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can see in the blue where I made the changes about a caretaker unit instead of apartment accessory, and that only applies to commercial and industrial. So it's not realistically under the same guise as an accessory dwelling unit. It's just more of a caretaker's unit that, you know, you need security or you need somebody who cleans after hours, so they're going to live in that facility. It's not intended for multiple dwelling units or anything like that in the industrial and commercial zone. We can help that. There's other provisions in certain commercial zones that allow for residential, but this one is for specifically related to a commercial or industrial operation.
So what we're talking about here is like, well, say the airport that decides that it's, if it was a private facility, they decided they needed somebody living there full time to provide on-site security, even though it doesn't meet the zoning, this is what allows that.
Right, this would allow it, correct. And I would probably, you know, as we go through the comprehensive plan process, talk to you about other types of dwelling units, you know, specifically looking maybe downtown commercial zone and having dwelling units on the second story, you know, trying to get some of those buildings downtown rebuilt, because that way if somebody has commercial at the bottom and residential on the second, at least they can have some income to pay for the building. Whereas now, if the commercial moves out, there's nothing there that really pays the rent or anything of that nature and keeps the building in shape. So there'll be other types of dwellings that we will be discussing as we move along, because that is one of the biggest issues right now with the state of Washington and Yakima County is affordable housing or housing at all income levels. Actually, we saw in Granger an issue where they had too much low-income housing and exempt housing that the city could no longer afford it. They didn't, you know, the tax dollars pays for the fire and the police and streets and all that stuff. And with exempt housing, that they don't pay any of that bill, but they have the impact in that you still have to provide schools for the children. You still have to provide sidewalks and everything else for them. So we need to look, as we go through housing, we'll be looking at housing at all levels. And this is an accessory dwelling unit is just one way of starting to look at providing housing. And this is to look at some of those lots where they have a pretty good sized lot. They have a house on it. They can add an additional small house in the back for someone, then that covers it or helps provide housing that we don't currently have.
And it creates property value to create income for our infrastructures.
Yes. Now, I know you had a comment about not wanting to move it forward unless we get that resolved, or can I put it in ordinance and hopefully address
No,
it?
you can.
Because
No,
I
you
think
can
that's,
move. I think you can move forward with it. I would just like to hear from legal counsel before we put mass amount of time into it, and then maybe he understands that law a little bit different than the rest of us, so that we make sure that we're not putting our foot in our mouth and then having to cost a bunch of extra money. And I'm not saying that just because you're the new guy. I'm just saying that from the past experience that we've had things started and then we find out that they don't get completed because nobody, completed it. So
Right.
I just like, as a businessman, I like to keep my legalities in front before I put a whole bunch of time out. You get a, so that's my point of it.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that I'm always of the opinion that if I start something and planning commission, the council says move forward with it, I will move forward with it.
Okay, that's what we want to hear.
So is there any opinions on changing from accessory apartments to accessory caretakers units?
I think that makes sense.
I'm okay with that. Sounds good.
Okay.
I agree with that as well.
Is it the consensus of the planning commission that we should have a public hearing on this at our next meeting in August?
Yes.
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 I would agree with that. My question is, how are we going to do a public hearing now? We're going to be able to let them be involved on the Zoom meeting as well for the public hearing?
May I speak?
What is a public hearing?
So we did a public hearing with city council, and we did what other cities have done is when we released the public hearing notice through newspaper, we asked that people submit their comments online by emailing comments@sunnyside-law.gov, or also just mailing anything in, that works too. So that's how we receive public comment. And anyone that's
Okay.
signed on, you can open and say, are there any comments? They can speak as well, just like you members are doing it here now.
Okay. So you got that all figured out. That's why we got you, Jackie.
Yes, he's a wonderful asset.
Thank you.
She very is. I will agree with that.
So
Deborah
that's all-
trained her very well.
Yeah, so that's all I have, and just so you know, this will be a short meeting, but the rest of the meetings will probably be long until the beginning of next year. And we'll probably have them once a month.
And our next scheduled meeting is, Jackie, do you have a date for us?
It's August 11th,
August 11th, okay?
and I will try to get the next section we're looking at and the ordinance and stuff to you about 2 weeks before the meeting, so you have plenty of time to look at it.
That sounds good to me.
Great, thank you.
And
Thank
just
you,
so you
Jackie,
guys
for
know,
Governor's camp, isn't it?
just so you guys
Jackie, can you
know,
let us know when the paperwork is ready to pick up?
yeah.
Yeah,
um,
I can send out emails and make phone calls.
And just so you guys know, if you expect to have a long meeting and you don't want to be too late, you can schedule a special meeting. You can cancel this regular one at 6:30, and we can schedule one sooner if you guys don't want to be logged in too late. Like you can start it at 4:30 or 3:30. It just depends on what you guys want.
Now, I take it the last meeting, there was discussion about starting at 5:30. Is that the consensus?
I'm happy to start as early as possible.
I think that was consensus, but it seems like Aaron said that as far as the regular meetings go, like the 6:30 was actually in the ordinance. So to change that might take council action, or am I remembering that right, Britt?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they had to ask council if that was going to be okay due to public attendance. So, Mike, I'm not sure what the procedure would be on that.
Okay, I will
suppose
find out, and we'll start next month at 6:30, but I will have the process of moving it to 5:30 if that's the consensus of the planning commission.
Okay,
If you want to
Thank
change
you.
the code, you do have to take it to council, but if you end up deciding you want to do it, you want to change it, you can. You can do it one time every month, or if you want to change it from now on, you would take it to council, but if you want to do it next month, you can say, we can cancel the 6:30 meeting and notice the special meeting at 5:30 or 3:30, whatever you want.
okay.
I think anything before 5:30 for me would be really difficult.
Okay.
So 5:30, I can make it work.
Okay.
I have a question probably for Jackie. All of a sudden this afternoon, I was unable to access my city email. And I'm pretty sure that I had my password right, but apparently it's got lost. Who would I contact for help on that?
You can let any of us know and we can contact IT. We'll have them reset your password. And once we get confirmation that they have already reset your password, we'll give you a generic one and you just log in and you'll change it again yourself.
Okay,
So Mike's writing a note and he'll contact IT for that.
thanks, Mike.
That's all I have for the meeting.
Sorry, I have one more thing, just so you have 2 absences, I believe, 2.
Yes.
So what would the committee like to do about those 2? Would you like to excuse them or leave them unexcused?
I
Deanne
move
had
to,
called me and, oh, excuse me.
I move to treat both absences as excused due to the newness of this meeting format.
I'll second that.
Any debate? With no debate, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, motion passed.
I just got one more thing for myself. I missed last month's meeting for the fact that I ended up having my gallbladder, or the last in March meeting, I think it was, is when it shows here. Because I was in the hospital with a blown up gallbladder. So hopefully everybody excuses me for not being there for our last meeting.
Tar and feathers.
So that's the reason why I wasn't there. So other than that, I don't have anything else.
There being nothing further, we can adjourn the meeting if Britton.
Yes. Yes, we can adjourn the meeting. The time is now 7:16 and we will see everybody or talk to everybody on August 11th.
And hopefully we'll have it a little bit better figured out so we can get you on time.
Okay, that works for me. You all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Okay, so I'll show you how to end the meeting. Just hit stop share up there. And then we want to, where'd it go? Click here. And, oh, where is it? Maybe click here and drag it a little bit right there. Okay, so we want to hit end.
Okay.
And then end meeting.